Alright guys, Technivorous here. Today we are taking a look at Raise3D's slicer. It is called IdeaMaker. The version we're looking at today is 3.4.2. Pretty standard workspace you're looking at. This is the configuration wizard. What we're going to do is change the printer type here. We're going to do that by clicking on the drop down here and going down to Other. And then we're just going to type in Ender 3. Of course, we have to set up the proper size for our build plate. So 220, 220, setting mine to 230. For the height, you don't really need to worry about the distance from build plate, stuff like that. Build plate shape is rectangle. We are going with marlin. So primary extruder count 1. Primary extruder, now this is actually your primary filament with most others, with the other slicers you would use. So we're going to stick with the standard Raise3D PLA. We'll be updating and adjusting that profile. Now the gantry height settings here, these are for if you're doing individual prints, one at a time, multiple prints on the same build plate, so you can know how high you can print something and still be able to move around it with your nozzle. We're not going to be using that at all, so I'm not too worried about it. We are going to set our default action to export to disk. You can set it to upload directly to a printer. Now here you can see we have our Ender 3. We're going to move on to the next. Extruder count is 1. And we are using that Raise3D PLA. And now you can see we have access to our build plate. I'm going to maximize this here. And it is pretty much the same as most other slicers. Right click to drag around. You can home in and change to the custom or the set angles of left, front, and top with these arrows here. So I'm going to load some models in. What I did was I grabbed a couple. I'm not going to mess with the print settings here. We are going to change our main layer height to 0.16, and you can see there are some basic settings here. Now, if you take a look at this, there is this handy little add button down here, and if you click that, it'll open this other menu, and this is where you can grab all your other settings. So this is like the advanced tab in Cura, and once you check it, you can turn it on, and it'll show up over here. So very customizable. I think a little bit better flow than Cura as far as we're going to take that one too, and I think we're also looking for infill pattern. So we'll find that one in here too. And then we'll have our basic settings that we're going to be using. So let me just dig that out real quick. It should be, oh, I passed it. Yep, it should be right in here. We'll turn that on, hit OK. And as you can see, it updates our menu with our settings here. So that's great. Alright, so now we're going to go in and we're going to adjust a couple of our settings in here. I want to change my initial layer height. I want it to be 0.2, not 0.3. 0.3 was a little high for my preferences. So, and then we'll go in here and adjust this. That'll work. You can change the infill pattern. We're going to go with a honeycomb pattern on this one. So we'll click that. And you can see my adhesion set to brim, and go ahead and slice. As you can see, as it finishes slicing, it does automatically save our model to our preferred save space. Slice completed, saving print file. And now that we've sliced our model, let's jump over and check out the preview scene. So there are a bunch of different settings for coloring as far as how to see it in your preview slicer, and you can scroll through the layers. It's pretty smooth. In fact, a little bit smoother than Cura. I enjoyed it quite a bit just kind of playing with this. So there are, you can set it to show just the current layer, which is also kind of cool. And right now it is set to structure over here, but you can change it to extruder color. You can change it to a speed map. Right now this is extruder color. I only have one extruder on my printer, so it's all black. This is the speed map, and you can go through and see how fast. So most of these settings are available in the preview mode and most other slicers, but I find this works really smooth, and I really enjoy it. So it's fun to play around with, but let's check out some of the other settings that are pretty cool. So here you can see I've imported a couple other models. They're just a couple more chess pieces, nothing major. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here, and then we're going to take this guy, and I'll show you the first feature, which is the button up here on the top bar, which is another thing I really like about this. You have these options here on the left, but the top bar is where your hot buttons are, so it's easy to grab something, and then it displays the options on the left. And you can either grab and drag it by the arrow, or you can grab the object and move it as well. And you can see it keeps this little origin here to tell you how far you are from the center of the build plate from your 0, 0. So that's actually pretty cool. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to grab this second model here, and I'll show you the scale. So there are two ways to scale. It's just like Cura. Right now I have uniform scaling turned on, and I can just grab one of the dimensions and move it, and it will scale all of the dimensions the same percentage to keep your model accuracy. Pretty typical of a slicer. That is the normal scaling mode. You can also turn off uniform scaling, and perhaps say we grab the queen here and we make it a little bit wider without making it taller or deeper. That's kind of cool, pretty simple. Most slicers have this function as well. Like I said, I really like how smooth everything seems to run together here. It's very enjoyable. Alright, and the next thing I want to talk about, this is such a simple tool, but this is one of the reasons that this slicer could end up being a Cura killer in the long run. We're going to look at the slice tool. So this is a cutting tool that basically you can move it up and down through the selected model. You can select more than one model, and it will oversize the plane to intersect both those models. You can also change the rotation or the angle on here. This is a very simple thing that I think all slicers should include directly without having to dig through their interface to find stuff like this. So if I go in here, we'll rotate the X by, let's say, 45. I think that'll work. And then you just go ahead and hit Start Cut down here. It does take a second. Doesn't take too long. It's actually pretty quick. You'll see when I come back, instead of the one bounding box, it has two bounding boxes, and you can now select them independently as individual models. So it's taking that model and slicing it directly on that plane that you place. You can also add and subtract negative and positive spaces by using other models, cubes and spheres and stuff. But you see now we're back and we have two separate models. So I can just grab the bottom if I want, and I can move it, or I can, and it's easy to take apart a model and then rebuild it after you print it, which also allows for a larger scale. The other thing that is pretty cool is the support option. Now I can auto-generate support for just the model that is clicked on. I can also, like I said, select more than one model. You can auto-generate for a couple. But the really cool thing about the support here is I can just go to the Add button, select that, and it'll give me this pillar here, and I can go through and just add it wherever to the model that I have selected. Now I'm gonna go back around to the front here. You can see this bust, the top part of the bust is just floating here. See the support I just added in, but it won't let me add to this model because I don't have it selected at the moment. So I'm going to clear the supports off this one, not that I need to, it doesn't really matter, but let me add another one in here just to show you how simple it is. You don't need to do the auto supports, you can add as minimal support as possible, which is great. And if we, let's see, deselect. So I'm going to go into move modes to kind of get me out of my support menu, and I'll grab this other model. And we'll go back into support, and I'll show you that you can just add it to any model. So now I'm going to go underneath this model like I showed you it was floating. So if I click here, it'll add a support. You see the little yellow beam, that's one that's been added. Or I can also auto support. Now, adding auto support will get rid of the supports that I added, but you can see that it should be enough to hold it up. Generally, you don't want to print models in midair, especially since there's a flat surface here. I can just lay it down to the build plate. So I'm going to go ahead and remove a few of these. And hang on here, I got to go back into move mode. And we'll grab this. We're just going to get rid of that altogether. Delete. And then this, we are going to use this make fit or max fit button up here. So what that does is makes it as big as possible to fit on the build plate, which is pretty cool. So it'll let you print the biggest model you possibly can with your dimensions. First, I need to go back into move mode and go to select my model. We'll hit arrange all models. That will put it in the middle. And then I can move it over here. Make center will also do the same thing because there's only one model. So then we'll hit on platform. That'll drop it down to the platform. And now it's centered and on the platform. You can see this space here. What we're going to do is hit make fit, and it makes it as big as it'll possibly go and still fit in your build area, which is pretty cool. You can see that there's a pretty big gap down here. This amount of support probably is not going to work. So one of the pitfalls about this program is it doesn't yet have that new feature that Cura just put in, that rotate face to build plate. So you have to do that manually. It's pretty easy to do, but instead of doing that, I'm going to take the cheap way and just make another cut because I love this tool. Bring it straight down. I've left the plane horizontal so it'll give me an exact flat surface, and we will make a cut there. And that'll allow us to just kind of run over these features one more time, because that way I can show you again the drop to build plate as the model will be floating again. And we can also make it a little bit larger because without that little piece at the bottom, we'll be able to fit more of it in our build area. So I'm going to select the bottom model and we'll just get that out of here. Delete will take care of it for you. And then we'll select the top model, hit on platform, and we will hit support so we can get that chin and the neck supported there. We'll go ahead and add that in automatic. They do a pretty good job. At the end of the video, I'll show you how easy these support pillars are to remove because I did print a king. So you can also use the duplicate button. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. The repair button we'll go over in just a second. You can see down here in the corner there is a pop-up that lets you know that the model has non-manifold edges, and on this one there is 667. Now that's a problem with printing because you won't get the best quality print and it takes longer to slice, and the slice won't be as accurate. So there is a handy built-in tool for this up at the top. It is called Repair. It is easy to see. It is indicated by a wrench with a plus next to it, and basically when you see this error message with the exclamation point and you have non-manifold edges, what you're going to want to do is select your model and click that repair button. And as you can see, it's repairing it now. It does take a minute, but you're going to end up with a much better print than trying to print something and slice it into G-code with non-manifold edges. And now you can see I have this green check here and it says 0 non-manifold edges. So my model has been repaired and it is now in quite good condition. I have no non-manifold edges, which means the slicing process as well as the printing process will both go a lot smoother. and that's a good thing. So now we're going to go through a lot of these steps with the model that I'm actually going to print, and I will show you the finished print as well as how easy it is to remove the supports, and I'm very happy with the way that this turned out. So stay tuned and bear with me. There are a couple of settings we need to adjust in the print settings, and I'll show you how to get at those because they're not necessarily in the places that they're labeled at. So I'm going to grab my Egyptian king here, if I can find the right folder. We'll load that model. It's one of my favorites. I've printed a lot of these chess pieces. It looks good in a lot of different colors. And we'll go ahead and grab that. Okay, yeah, so the template here, this is what's going to be our filament in our filament settings, and we need to create a new one. So we're going to go to create. It doesn't matter what you name it. Just put something simple in there and select a base template. We can adjust the settings for that in a minute. It says filament Raise3D. That's not the filament I'm using, but close enough. And then the starting quality will give you a starting size, and I've chosen a pretty high quality. I do tone that down a little bit. We're going to up the infill to 20%. I'll leave that where it is. And make a couple other quick adjustments, setting up the brim and turning on supports. We're going to put those on all. And then we can check out the advanced settings. In the advanced settings, you'll see your layer height, your shell, stuff like that. I'm going to go ahead and make a couple little adjustments in here. So just bear with me. I do want to point out that in a minute here, you're going to see me go over to the speed tab and look at a few things and not change anything. I did go back and take those values down each by about a third, simply because I was having adhesion issues with my first model. Now, it turned out I didn't really need to take those speed values down because the adhesion was a bed leveling issue. I hadn't leveled my bed in a while, and I left the initial print at a 3mm initial layer, so it wasn't really bonding, so it was pushing it off of the mat as it got further up the print. But that was easily solved by leveling my bed. Don't forget to level your bed. Have to do that pretty often in order to keep things accurate. It's kind of annoying, I know, but it happens. So we'll just click through a couple more settings, and we're looking at the support type. There's a couple different types. I'm going to leave it on normal to see what their normal type is. And there's some support settings here as well. You're welcome to play around with these. I'm going to pretty much leave it at the default. I'll change anything that I need to change. I will tell you, of all the stuff you see me change in the video, it all worked out pretty well. Like I said, I didn't really need to go back and change the speed. The one thing that you do need to find in here and deal with is going to be your retraction settings, because I did have a little bit of stringing. Now, the stringing mostly occurred in between the support and the model and came off with the support, but it was there. So just be aware of the fact that you might want to run a stringing test and adjust your retraction settings with this software. You'd probably be able to get away with pulling in the exact same settings you used in Cura and just using those numbers.
Alright, so here we have our Pharaoh. He came out beautifully. I did change the layer height to 0.16. You can see a little bit of layer lining in there, but it is very, very, very minimal. The support, now the model's probably going to go flying when I do this, it comes off super easy. And leaves pretty much no impression on the model. There is a little bit of there. That is a full overhang, though. That's a 90 degree from the body, so it's expected to be a little bit there. You can go ahead and pop this off the back here, and you can see the back is pretty much perfect. There was no contact with the support other than right where it needed to be, and that is easily post-processing finishable. So here is our completed model. I am very happy with this. I'm going to go back, try an ABS print of this same thing because I want to smooth it with some acetone, and I don't think that it'll take very long because this has come out beautifully. So now we're going to quickly go over some pros and cons to this software, and I'll tell you exactly why I think in the long run it very well could be a Cura killer, but I'll also tell you why right this second it necessarily isn't just yet. But it's well on its way. And to be honest, if you're using anything other than Cura, this software is going to blow it out of the water. We're talking prusaslicer. This is far better than prusaslicer in my opinion, as well as Simplify 3D. And I would take prusaslicer over Simplify 3D, honestly, just because you have to pay for Simplify 3D, but they try to charge you for each feature, and it's really annoying when there's so many awesome free slicers. So if you're looking for an alternative to Cura, or even if you really like Cura but want to try something that, you know, in my opinion is slightly better and has a little bit more potential in the long run, definitely check this slicer out. And we'll check out that pro and con list real quick and see exactly how we feel about it. But so far, I am very, very pleased with this, and to be honest, I'm going to be using it quite regularly. So get used to seeing it on the channel. And if you do subscribe and like checking my stuff out, you're probably going to want to download this as well, because you're going to be seeing it a lot.
And as always, guys, I am Technivorous. Thanks for watching this video. Don't forget to hit the like button. You can subscribe right here by clicking on the icon. And I put a couple videos up in the corner. One of them is going to be my latest video, my latest upload, and the other one is going to be what YouTube recommends for you. So feel free to check those out. Don't forget to hit that bell for notifications down below, and we'll see you guys next time.